in this piece by, oh gosh, I thought I had it. I think this is Manet. Sorry that I don't have the name on there. You see some sharp and diminishing detail, even in this somewhat expressive impressionistic piece. Sharp and diminishing detail. These figures, while not perfectly in focus, are much sharper than the figure over here that's just a couple of blobs of color. You get overlapping, position, again lower on the canvas, it feels closer to us, except for these trees whose detail keeps them close to us even though they cross through different spatial areas. And also size. These figures are much larger than the stuff going on back here. Okay, here's some more spatial indicators. In this case, sharp and diminishing detail. The leaves are more noticeable here than they are back here. Size, larger trees closer to us. Converging parallels, look at this. You get these lines that these ones look like they would converge, say, right about here. These guys are going to converge over there. So they're not really all lining up with this same horizon line, this same vanishing point. This parallel, the vanishing point, is going to be over here. But those parallels do give the illusion of converging with each other as if you're looking end on to a bunch of lines of trees. This is a piece by April Gornick called Valley Underwater. Okay. I'm Rene Magritte, The Lost Jockey. What do we have? We have sharp and diminishing detail, size, large trees, medium trees, small trees, position. In this case, we're paying mostly the attention to where they emerge from the ground. The ones that emerge closer to the bottom of the canvas feel closer. The ones that are growing out of the ground, starting higher up, feel further away. We have overlapping. We have some transparency. If you look here, you can see the shapes of some of the other tree leaves, tree branches showing through these loose, empty branches. And then, of course, we have converging parallels. This piece, Ramses II with Isis, is an example of what's called fractional representation and overlapping to create a sense of space. This is a much shallower space than what we've been looking at up to this point. Fractional representation is a device used by various cultures, particularly, notably the Egyptians, but some others as well, in which several spatial aspects of the same subject are combined in a single image. So the spatial aspects, we're talking about how things look in different orientations. So in this case, we see shoulders turned to us as if the body is turned head on, directly at us. All the shoulders are perfectly as wide as they would be, and yet the heads all appear in perfect profile. If you've ever tried to stand that way, it's nearly impossible. And then the hips again are turned, in this case, about a 3/4 view. Here, again, perfectly parallel. This would be a nearly impossible pose to hold, I would think. So a fraction of the body is turned sideways, a different fraction is turned toward us, a different fraction is turned partially parallel, partially turned away. This is fractional representation. And then you do see overlapping. The elaborate headgear is in front of this wing, and yet this wing is in front of the throne. So you get a sense that these wings are actually enfolding the figure on the throne, probably a pharaoh, probably Ramses III, actually. Over here, you get the arm in front of the shoulder. And then there's some text as well. This is Egyptian text, let's not forget. So this is probably a story being told. And actually, now that I think about it, we also have some transparency. The fabric that this figure is wearing, you can still see the legs through it, and you get this rhythmic of the legs. It's a really nice piece. Okay. Spatial indicators can happen in non-objective work as well. This is a piece, oh gosh, why don't I have the name on this one either? Anyway, in this piece, does it feel like it's coming toward you or pushing away? What would you say? Well, I would say toward us, and I'm sure you probably do too. That's in part because size. You get a sense that all these squares are really the same, and that here, on the edge of this bulged area, they start to come toward us, and they get bigger. If they got smaller, we'd feel the opposite, that it would be pushing away from us. But because they get larger, they seem to be coming toward us. We also have a sense of converging parallels. Here, the outside edges of the composition set up a pattern of a grid. And then as this begins to bulge toward us, the lines which are out here parallel begin to converge. So we have a vanishing point kind of here, and we have another one sort of over here. And we have a sense of warms advancing and cools receding. The primary tone of this back area with the pinks but then the dark purples is kind of cool, whereas this area that comes toward us with the bright reds and greens is a little bit warmer. Another thing that I'm thinking about now as I'm looking at it is these colors are a bit more intense. So to some degree we're having a little bit of atmospheric perspective because these richer colors feel closer to us than the more pastel versions of the colors that are further away. A piece by Julian Stanczak, a couple of pieces that play with a sense of space. He's using position, overlapping, the illusion of transparency, converging parallels. I've got a little star here because we'll talk about that in a second, and the sense of how warms advance and cools recede. Also, that one actually probably deserves a star as well. So the top piece up here, these are just different shades of the same colors, but it really looks as if they are panes of translucent acrylic or something that are layered over each other with some light coming through them to give a sense of three-dimensionality. This area feels closer to us than back here. And this plane or pane feels as if it's moving backward into space away from us. That's true of all of these. And then down here, Julian Stanczak's playing a little bit with the way warms advance and cools recede and the sense of converging parallels, because these parallels would converge toward us instead of away from us. And the cool tones of this, what would be the back square due to overlapping, are kind of at odds with the fact that this top piece also has that going on, and the whites and the darks don't seem to really interrelate with how space is really moving. Also, if you'll notice here, it looks as if this plane turns as it arrives down here. It starts out in a sort of a sense of something vertical, and it ends up something sort of horizontal. So he's really messing with us in spatial indicators to try to create and yet at the same time subvert a sense of space with this piece. And then we're going to talk about perspective in another couple minutes here.